Good morning, everybody. Now, I just thought I'd show you this little job that we got going through the workshop in a minute. Now, this is a Mazda 323, and the reason it's in here is because we're going to make some coilovers to go on this car. Now, I've never worked on one of these, so this is a Mazda 323F. Is that what it is? I'm not quite sure. It's got this little aftermarket front splitter on it, front wheel drive, 4-door hatchback. Well, I've already stripped out the back because we're putting the coilovers on. Has a bit of plastic that goes over there, top mounts are there. This being a weird, obscure car, which happens quite often. I've been doing this for many, many years. There's no aftermarket support, so you're gonna have to make something that's gonna fit the car. So off camera, I've already stripped the front strut out, which is right here. So this is the front strut. Obviously, this bit bolts to your hub, and this bit bolts to your top mount. The thing we want to change is the bit in the middle. So we want this car to be lower, we want it to be adjustable, but we still want it to mount to the factory mounting points of the car. So these coilovers right here, these are fully adjustable max speed and roll coilovers from a Nissan S13. So they're damping adjustable, camber adjustable, and obviously they have a decent front spring in it. So this one is a 8K spring, which is a front. And then this one here is a 7K spring, and that is a rear. So, you know, I've used these a couple of times on different vehicles. The main thing about these struts is the lower mounts here are steel and they're removable, so you can weld to them. So this is obviously a rear one that goes onto there. Having a set of coilovers with an adjustable piece like this is key, because obviously you can modify this. In my younger years, I used to just have coilovers which you couldn't weld to, so you had to work with what you got. Nowadays, you can pick these coilovers up pretty cheap, and you can almost always use them on obscure vehicles like this. So, plan is obviously cut this back, clean it up, get it into metal, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut this lower mount off, or actually tell a lie, I'm going to measure up and see if we're able to. If we can cut the lower mount off this bracket and slide this bracket over this one, we're on to a winner. If we can't, we'll have to fabricate the holes here. Now the front and the rear coilovers look very similar, however the rear has an extra bracket on it which we definitely need to include. Luckily, I already looked online and I knew what was in store for this, but I didn't know that this bracket here was there, so I'll have to incorporate that, but it's not really too much of a problem. So my thought process usually goes like this. See a random old car on Facebook and go, sweet, that looked great on the floor. Instantly onto Google, search Mazda 323 slammed. Has anyone done it? Probably not, because there's no aftermarket support. So that usually happens quite often. And then I go, I wonder if I could do that. So then I'll go Mazda 323 suspension. And then I'll look at the suspension and have like exploded diagrams on there, or pictures that someone else has taken underneath the car. And I'll look through it, match it, and have a look. And to be honest, I literally just do it by eye and go, yeah, that'll be all right. That'll be all right. And then I always just think I'll just deal with the consequences at a later date. Realistically, 90% of cars, like I said before, they're all pretty similar as cars go. So the way I used to work is get a car, Mark III Golf coilovers, done. Instantly fit, lower it, put on some cool wheels, and that was that. And I used to repeat that process on all of the cars I ever did. Some hurdles were different. Some coilovers were not allowing the car to go low enough. So we used to go for like 6N coilovers because they were a lot shorter than Mark III coilover. And yeah, as the years progressed, I just sort of stopped being cheap and started buying proper coilovers or making air ride systems or hydraulics. And, you know, I haven't really bought any cheap suspension for a car in a long time. However, this is my stomping ground and I have done this many, 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 many times. So I know the techers now. I know the techers. So when it comes to these coilovers, I knew that they were going to probably fit anyway. So that's how I figured out how this is all going to work. I'm speaking as if I'm not going to run into any problems. However, just trust me. Just trust me. If you wanted to do that to your car, you can sort of just go off the same thing, look at a couple of pictures, give an eyeball. Yeah, that'd do. And that's how I do it. It used to really annoy me because everyone used to think I used to cut springs on these old cars. It was never the case. There was so much effort and determination into getting these cars low. And everyone used to think I just took the springs out as well. No, Taking the springs out never went low enough, so it never happened like that. And it used to wind me up, but now I think people understand that that wasn't the case. I'm gonna rip all the struts off now, get them on the bench, and we can have a measure up, clean up, and then hopefully start fabricating some brackets onto the new coilovers. Right, rear strut is out. That is one massive strut, yeah. And as you can see, this strut here is a lot shorter. Now, this isn't as low as it will go a lot longer. Obviously, we might want to extend this a little longer to make it actually not too low. That's a thing you have to factor in for. It might be much shorter and we'll go a lot lower, but if it doesn't raise up enough, then, you know, that's no good. Another thing to take into account for is that, you know, these springs here, the factory ones, they're going to compress a lot more than what this is going to compress. So, however this looks a lot longer, at this height now, they are probably, judging from experience, they're probably going to be sat at the same height. So, yeah, this is a bit of a trial and error thing. I haven't really found out the best way to figure out how low and where things want to go. It's sort of a trial and error thing. So, what I'm looking at straight away is I'm thinking of putting this bracket in the bottom of this orange bit. So cut it here and then put that in there and then weld it all the way around this edge, because, you know, this one is so big and then this one is a lot skinnier. So if we leave a section of this on there, cut a hole in the bottom of this one, slide this strut inside this one, then weld it all the way around this edge, we then have the factory bracket welded onto the coilover, and then all we need to do then is just put that top mount onto there. My plan was to use this, but I didn't realise that that was all rotten and cracked, which is probably not a good idea to use that, which makes things a lot more complicated. I love it when a plan doesn't come together. Right, scrap this idea. We're going to replicate this with this flat bit of 5mm plate. Is this 5 or 6? 5 or 6mm. This is heavy stuff. This is good, heavy stuff. And this is exactly what we need to go and weld onto there. We're just going to replicate this. This way would have worked, but it's rotten, so it's not going to work for us in this instance. But I would rather have gone for this one, because this is more work, but this would have been easier, if that makes sense. We might do this method on the front, but for the rear, we're definitely going to use this. So as you can see here, my template, you know, follows the edge of this strut here. So if we stand that there like that, it's part of it, so we can weld straight to the edge like so. Then you want to trace it on your bit of metal, dot punch it through the template, and then you want to make that into metal, and then that is going to weld straight onto this. Shit. That was my last small drill bit, man. Something like that. Something a little like that. There is one strut over there. Obviously we use the original top mount. It actually fits in there really nicely. If you're looking at that and thinking that's got a bit of an angle on it, that's factory, that's how the strut tower is. The strut tower is sort of like this. So using this was perfect. It actually locates this spring very nicely, so happy with that. Just need to get it on the car now, make sure everything checks out, and then I can fully seam weld it all the way down there, and then I can work on the little bracket on the bottom. It fits. Right, side quest. A couple of days have gone by since I was last working on this video, so now I'm carrying on with it. I've jumped straight back onto the fronts, which might not make sense in the video, but I'm just going to say I'm going to go back to the back end of it after I've done the front. Right, so front strut on the bench, same procedure applies. Turn it into a little bit of cardboard template off of there. Make sure you mark it on the inside so you have the distance from that hole to the center of the tube, which means you go something like that. And then what you want to do is you want to transfer it onto this one. Now this is an S13 bottom, and obviously the distance here to the center of the pipe is completely different to this one to there. There's lots of excess material here on the S13 one. I don't know any other car that has excess material like this. However, this actually works into our advantage this time, because what we can do is then obviously transfer that onto there, something like that, turn that into one of these, and then once you've done that, you can then just re-drill it and you can trim it to suit. Just another way of doing what we just did there, but that only really works on the S13 fronts because, yeah, they're just freakishly large. So, yeah, pretty cool. I'll trim this down, get the other one done, and I will be showing you the struts on the car. Haha, I've missed one step. The distance between this and this is too much, and we have a gap here. Now you can probably see I have tried to do it up, but it's just too much stress on like these welds here. There was about 5mm gap either side, so yeah, no good. So I'm going to cut this off and re-weld it just closer in, just like I did the rear. You could shim that and not do any welding. If you was doing this yourself, you could do that, but for me, I just want it to be no faff, on, done. You get the point. And just basically cut this off, weld it back on ever so slightly closer together, like so. Once that's tacked up, what I like to do is stick these bolts through here, right? Actually, let me mock it up and I'll show you. Now that is literally finger tight. That's not very tight, but basically if I just run a massive weld down here, this is going to basically try and move in like this. Same for this side. So if I weld on both sides and then go to put it on, that would have pinched itself together and it won't fit. So just put those bolts in there, spread it out just so the metal can't push through these threads, and that way you can weld all the way down there, all the way down there, and it should fit straight back on once you've done it. Thought I was going to blow through there at one point. I let off. I don't want to blow through this. You want it hot, but you don't want to blow through it because that will just go all in the threads in there. So it's sort of like a balance of getting it really hot and strong and not blowing a hole in your ship. And then what I need to do is take that bolt out of there, flip it around the other side because you can't get the welder underneath this little valley where the bolts are. Here. I want to be able to get it from this angle, so take the bolts out, just flip it back around, job's a good one. Matching pair. No, it's not. Oh, I'm so tired. Now, you think, put some paint on there, bang them on. Nope, not finished. So, there's one other thing we need to add to these front ones, and it's this. It's the brake tab. So, obviously you need to cut the tab off there, just tack it onto the side, and then paint it. That's all. Like so. Done. original top mounts on the coilovers. Pretty much a bolt-on application. The bearing in the top mount works perfectly with these coilovers, but the coilovers actually have another sealed bearing in this gold cap just here, which is quite cool. Can't do left-handed spray painting on camera very well, but there we go. These are going to be our rear tabs for our rear coilovers. There we go. Just need to make 4 of those, and then we'll trim the excess of this bush off so it matches the other side. And then that way, that can literally just go straight on each side, directly on the bottom of the coilover. That makes things very simple. I like it. And that is tacked onto the bottom there, so that is pretty simple. Tacked on there, weld it on there, weld it on the inside, get it all together, give it a lick of paint, and jobs are good. And we have to make a bracket that bolts onto the brake line here, because obviously we can't just weld it onto the side of the strut like this one, because the strut isn't as long as, like, it basically needs to be up here. So we need to make a bracket that comes up 90 degrees and bolts onto there. So I'll do that. So this is what I come up with. As you can see, it just sort of bolts onto the strut, and that goes something like this. It does fit, I'm sure of it. Something like this. It actually goes on the other side. So you see this here, this is offset. So if I put it on the other side, this whole bracket pulls out like 10 mil. But I have to take the bolts out, take the struts out to do that, because I'm gonna paint it and whatnot. But yeah, that's where it sits. And yeah, it's all good. I'm gonna do that on the other side, and then I'll get it all on, and we'll get it on the floor for the first time. Nice. Brackets on there, all mocked up. Everything, well, it's not mocked up, it's finished. That's the finished article. Bolted on there, new bolt on there, all painted black. Brake fittings on there. Nice. Let's get it on the ground and see how it drives. So, there it is. Looks pretty cool. I think I've got to raise the back up slightly. As you can see, it's a little bit low, but the front will also settle as well. So I'm going to go for a drive, get some miles on it, let the suspension bed in and settle and readjust. But other than that, I'm quite happy with the result. I think it looks pretty cool. It looks loads better now. It's slower. Like the front valance as well. This is obviously like an aftermarket front valance for this car or for a different Mazda. I don't know, but it looks cool. It looks sporty, and pretty happy with the way it all fits. Hopefully it doesn't rub on the arches. I've trimmed the arches on the rear, and I'm hoping that it doesn't rub, but it might. The tyres are pretty chunky, and they're quite close to the arch, but we'll see how it goes. The springs in this are like 8 on the front and then like 6 in the back, I'm pretty sure. So this should handle pretty decent, and hopefully it drives very nice. I have high hopes for it. I like it. I'm gonna go for a drive. First impressions, drives good. I've just pulled over to adjust the dampening. I had it on max stiffness, and I've just obviously de-adjusted it right now. It looks really good. I think the front's obviously settled a little bit, and it sort of looks even to the front and the rear. So pretty happy with that. And I did drive it down some super bumpy roads, and it didn't rub on the arches, so bonus as well. The only thing we got to do on this car is take the under tray off, because it is like very close to the floor, because it's hanging off, and I was going to take it off, but I completely forgot. It's broken, really. That's the main problem. Now I turn the dampening down, hopefully it doesn't rub on the arches. I don't think it should make a difference, but you know, let's see. I'd love to get some outside rolling clips, but I do all of this majority on my own, so I do apologise. So, next day, I gotta say, drives really good. It has settled a bit on the front, as you can see there. It is tucking just the top of the tyre, both sides. I think the overall stance of it looks pretty bang on. I can't really grumble at that. And you can throw it into any corner, and unless you're literally 10-10s, like throwing it into the corner, it only just brushes the arch liner on the front arch, so it doesn't rub front or rear 99% of the time, so pretty happy with that. I think personally, for drivability wise, I would, just downsize the spring like 2K or something, and it would be a little bit comfier. So it's a little tiny bit bouncy at the back because it's so light in the back and there's nothing in it. But other than that, I think it's spot on. It drives really well, and I think that this is realistically, this is one of the ways that all these older cars are going to have to go. So obviously there's no aftermarket support for this car at all, and the suspension is 30-40 years old, and there's going to be a lot of other cars throughout vehicles in general that are just going to get like this, and you're not going to be able to buy any parts for them. Why would anyone make a set of shock and springs for a Mazda 323 like this? So rare as it is, like there's no point of putting their money into this project as a company. So if you're confident with a grinder, a drill, and measuring, this could be the project for you, because to be honest, it's just time. If you was doing this at home, it'd be pretty inexpensive to do it yourself, and the overall look and drivability is 10 times what the original shock and springs are going to do. So pretty happy with that. Like I say, I've done this sort of thing many times, and it's cool. It's cool to do this sort of thing. So that is how you get coilovers on pretty much any car that you want. If you're confident, you could do it as well. I use basic tools: angle grinder, drill, welder, tape measure, Sharpie. That's all you need, and a bit of a brain to figure things out. But yeah, that's how you do it. So if you fancy doing this at home, you think, oh, I've got a similar car to that, I reckon I could do that, you could either bring it to me and I'll do it, or try it yourself. And then Max Peter Rods actually gave me a discount code at the bottom, which gives you 10% off. So just type in Gresswell when you order from their website, and then you will get 10% off. I'll put it on the screen right here, and you could do the exact same job. But if not, go to Gresswell's and I could do this sort of thing for you if you desire. That's it for this video. I enjoyed making this video. It was a bit of an oddball one. Tried to be informative, but still entertaining and fun to watch. And we've created this, and it drives really nice, simple and effective, and anyone can sort of do it really. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. I'm currently about to start doing work on some lupos, which is my stomping ground. If you follow me for a while, you know that I spent my entire youth working on lupos, so it's nice to get this in the workshop for once. And yeah, check out all the other videos, subscribe, do all that sort of stuff. Thank you very much. Goodbye.